Hi, this is Editor Troxel. In this tutorial, we're going to look at what it will take to actually import an XML file. Here was the issue. The person was wanting to import from an XML file, but when you import an XML file from Vegas, the first thing it asks is, do you want to save the current project? And then it resets the project to nothing. This person was wanting to add multiple XML files back to back so that they were all in the same project, and so he was having to open each one individually, then copy it over to a base project, and then open the next one and copy it over to a base project. He just wanted to provide several XML files and have them all imported onto the same timeline. And so let's see how this might be done. First thing we have to do is figure out how to read the XML file, and then we can just go through multiple XML files without having to reset the project in between. Now there are some issues here. I am in this project, I am not fully reading the XML file, and I'm just kind of going through a brute force method to find the pieces of information I need, and I am not setting it up so that if multiple files were referenced in this XML file, it's only going to import from one file. So there are some definite limitations to this that would need to be modified to work around, but this got the job done for what he was needing to do. So first, let's look at one of the XML files. Here is one of the XML files that I was provided, and basically this line here is going to be ignored, but we're going to go through and just look at this XML file. We're going to look for sequence, and then it's going to give us, show us all of this information. Basically we're going to ignore this part, then we're going to get to the media and video and format, so we're looking for specific things here. One of the big things that we're looking at is we are going to have to change the frame rate, because without changing the frame rate it did not import correctly. So as we come down here, we have the path URL that we're going to use, and then we have the time base, and so this is where we will be changing to 60 frames per second instead of 30, which is the project default. And then we also will change the height and the width, and so all of that information is available here. And then when we come down here, we get the information for the clip items, and the big things we're going to look at is the start, end, in, and out. So the question is, what do these mean? The start is the location on the timeline that this segment is going to start. End is the location on the timeline where this segment is going to end. In, IN, is where in this clip am I going to pull this information from. So I start this many frames in, and then the out is where in this clip am I going to quit showing the video from. So these two deal with the timeline location. These two tell me which section of the file to pull in. And of course there are a bunch of those in both video and audio. So looking at the code here, first of all I need to set me up an array of file names because I'm going to get more than one. Then this is going to be where I store the URL to the clip that I'm pulling from right now, which there will be one per file. This is going to be my base starting position on the timeline, and I decided to use that as my offset so that when I see the start and end in the file, I use this as an offset to tell me where on the timeline to really put it. And then I have a video track and an audio track. So the first thing I have to do is get the list of XML files. So I need an open file dialog, which I just called OFD, equals new open file dialog. Now we can set up the parameters for that. So the open file dialog filter is going to say import files, and I'm going to show XML files or all files. And this is the proper format for showing those two options. Then I'm going to set the multi-select to true because I want to be able to select multiple files. Then I'm going to set the title for this dialog to be select the files to import. I'm going to set up an initial directory. This is where I have the files located on my hard drive. You can change it to wherever you want to show up by default. And then I need to get me a dialog result, which I call dr, from ofd.showDialog. So now it's going to show the dialog, and you're going to be able to select the files, and then you will click on either OK or Cancel. So if my dialog result equals system.windows.form.dialogresult.OK, if they clicked on OK, then I'm going to go through and get the file names from ofd.filenames. That will be the list of files that I'm going to go through and process. Now that I have a good list of file names, I'm going to start a new project in Vegas, and this false and false are, do I want to show up a prompt to save, and do I want to show a dialog? In this case, by saying false and false, it will just simply clear the Vegas project. If I wanted to see the prompt, then I could say those both to true and true, or true and false, however I wanted to set those based on the prompt save and the show dialog that I wanted to see. Next thing I'm going to do is set vtrack equal to a new video track, and then in the project I'm going to add that video track. Then same thing with the audio track. A track equals new audio track, and then myvegas.project.tracks.add a track. So now I have a blank project with two blank tracks, and then I'm going to make sure my cursor position is set to timecode.fromFrames0. Technically, I'm using this cursor position as my base location, and so now for each string file in the list of file names, I get my base start position from the cursor position. Then I'm going to process the import file, which is one of the files in the list of file names. Then I'm going to update the Vegas UI. If I do not do this, then it starts to get off after you've added a couple of files, because the user interface on Vegas hasn't updated, so it puts things in the wrong place. And then I'm going to reset my cursor position equal to the myvegas.project.length, so I'm going to move the cursor to the end. By moving the cursor to the end, when I come around and process the next file, now I'm going to get my base start position from the cursor position, which is now at the end, so now I'm going to add the next file at the end. Even though it's not a complete script yet, let's go ahead and see what it looks like when this dialog opens. So we come in here, run the script, and we can see that it opens the script for us, and then we could come in and pick the files that we wanted to pick, and then we would click on open, which is OK, or we can click on cancel. Notice it's limited to XML files. If I changed it to all files, then you'll see that other files would show up in the list as well. I'm going to click on cancel because we haven't added the code to process the files yet. So this is the beginning, which simply shows us how to get the files. In the next tutorial, we'll continue and figure out how to process the actual files by opening the XML file and then process to look for the pieces of information we need. So I hope you find this tutorial useful. Please like and subscribe, and we'll continue this in the next tutorial.
Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.